protecting homes and businesses from the whims of nature, you need more than just quality materials. You require RiverLand Roofing. Licensed, insured, and certified, RiverLand Roofing offers not only the assurance of excellence, but a tailored approach to your unique structural needs and budget. To learn more about what RiverLand Roofing can do for you and the community, call them at 662-644-4297 or visit riverlandroofing.com.
You're locked into Talk of Champions, an Ole Miss sports podcast with Ben Garrett and Billy and Body of the Ole Miss Spirit. Hello again, friends. Welcome inside the RiverLand Roofing Studios just off the Oxford Square. RiverLand Roofing for all your roofing needs, 662-644-4297, riverlandroofing.com. Sitting with me here in the studios, Ole Miss Athletics Director Keith Carter. Keith, how you feeling, man? How you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good, man. How's your summer been? What have you been up to? I know you've been busy.
Not much of a summer yet.
Yeah.
We've been playing and doing all this stuff for the past month or so. I've been traveling a bunch, watching our teams play, and then the past couple of weeks been back in the office a little bit. But summers aren't exactly what they used to be. A lot of stuff going on. Obviously, with the House settlement being implemented on July 1 next week. We're spending a lot of time kind of gearing up for that and getting ready. But we'll maybe get out of town a little bit in late July to try to relax.
Well, good. Get out there and have you some fun because, you got a lot on your plate. And the House settlement stuff going into practice next week, what does that mean? I mean, like you hear, I had Walker sit right here and he explained it like how operationally nothing's going to really change. But from an administration standpoint, once it does go into effect, what does that look like? Just in the short term and then maybe into the long term.
Yeah, I think Walker's right in a lot of ways. I think that we're still going to operate at a high level, but the lot of the contracts will be moved over to athletics from the collective. We'll start revenue sharing and paying them ourselves. So that's a lot of the work that's happening behind the scenes right now is converting a lot of those collective contracts into rev-share contracts, and that will be effective next week. As we kind of move forward, I think the relationship with the collective and Magnolia Sports Group and Learfield and Ole Miss Athletics, it'll be a little different, but largely the same. I think the main thing is that, we're going to start pushing a lot of our major gifts back over to the Athletics Foundation to help us pay the rev share. I think with Walker and his team, obviously very important as we move forward with corporate sponsorships and just membership for the Grove Collective and Magnolia Sports Group. So, and then Learfield as well, trying to figure out, with our multimedia rights partner, how we can use a lot of those relationships to find true NIL above the cap, because that's where the battleground is going to be now. Everybody's going to have the rev share in the SEC. We got to get really creative in finding what real deals look like and how we can find those for our student athletes, kind of above the cap money.
Corporate sponsorships, that piece is really interesting because that is a big umbrella, man, that covers a lot of different things, including like logo branding on the field itself. This isn't a secret, but like for like wrestling fans like me, like the bat used to be sacred. Right now, you look at and watch a wrestling match, man, and it's all branding all over the thing. I know from an athletics director standpoint, as someone who's been an Ole Miss guy forever, you're looking for the right fit and all those kind of things. But like, what's your just philosophy on the corporate logos and putting them on the field and finding the right fit and stuff like that? Because it is more of a complicated thing than like, all right, whoever can give the most money, we'll slap you on there. We'll call it like a Cheez-It Field. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I made a comment a few weeks ago that we don't want to become NASCAR, and I didn't mean that in a bad way towards NASCAR.
Right.
They obviously have a great product, but we don't want logos just kind of posted everywhere. And to your point, we got to find the right fit. But revenue is king these days, and so we're certainly, looking hard for, a corporate sponsor to put their name on the field, on the basketball court, those type of things. So on the baseball field, we can do that across really all of our venues. So that's a big revenue opportunity as we move forward. And then also, the jersey patches, they haven't been approved yet, but at some point that's going to happen. And so, what partner is appropriate for that? And as we put patches on football jerseys, basketball jerseys, baseball jerseys, those type of things. So, as you know, we got to come up with this $20.5 million for rev share, and we're trying to find ways to do that.
As far as like contracts and stuff, I know that like the finalization of Chris Beard's contract wasn't done last time I talked to him, which was, I want to say, about a month ago. It all kind of blends together this time of year. But where is everything with him and all that kind of stuff? And I know you went out to practice, man, and checked them out. What did you think of the new look Rebels? Because they're only returning 3, and man, they really cleaned up in the portal too.
They did, and so just to put a bow on Coach Beard, his contract is signed, and so he's ready to go. And of course, we had a term sheet signed, way back, a few months ago, and sometimes it just takes a little longer on the long form contract, but everything's signed, sealed, delivered, and we're moving forward. I did get a chance to go out yesterday and watch the scrimmage. They had referees out and scrimmage in the pavilion, and it was a little sloppy. Beard and I were talking about that, but they've only been together, 2 weeks, their second week together. But man, there's a lot of talent out there. I think a lot of opportunity to have a really, really good team. I think they're going to be really deep. I think the front court's going to be really good and deep as well. But just the athleticism, they're playing super hard. I think that's the main thing right now is they kind of gel together. Coach Beard was just talking about, hey, they're playing really hard. And that's the key. You don't want to coach effort. You don't want to have to do those type of things. I think yesterday they really didn't have anything implemented like schematically. They were just out there hooping, and it was really fun. And he said, as we get into next week and throughout the summer, they'll start putting some of that stuff in. But for me, an old hoops head, hoops junkie, it was fun to get out there and hear the balls bouncing, the shoes squeaking. So it was pretty cool.
It was funny because you were a topic of conversation yesterday. My wife and I celebrated 15 years of marriage, and you've got 25 coming up. You said beforehand. All right,
September.
So
Congrats, by the way.
Oh, thank you, my friend. So we go to a Downtown Grill, and there's Chris Beard and Matt Morrell. We get seated right beside him, and when I say the whole time, it was just like they were a part of our dinner. You know what I mean? Like that we were talking about growth things and how and like. And the funny thing is, he said, "Yeah, I told Matt if we beat North Carolina in the NCAA tournament, we'd go out to eat whenever he had a chance when he was back in Oxford." Sure enough, there they are sitting there, and Matt's talking about how he's really feeling better with his knee and kind of stuff like that. But like when you talk to the dude, he's a special kind of guy, man. He really is invested here. That's what was my biggest takeaway is like he really cares, man. And we've talked before. Look, he's been pursued by other opportunities and this, that, and the other. But if you talk to him for any meaningful amount of time, like he's taking great pride in building Ole Miss to what it is, man. And like that's why when you go out there and you see them, yeah, they look every bit the contenders is last year's Sweet 16 team. Let's be honest here. For Ole Miss basketball fans, the Sweet 16 was the holy grail for the last 20 years, right? So I just thought, it was really cool to sit there and talk to him because when you get to talk to him, man, he's a cool cat, dude.
He is, and I think you hit it on the head. Now going into year 3, the stability and just having been here and kind of knowing the lay of the land and how things work at Ole Miss, and we always knew that he was going to bring that special energy and talent from his coaching style and all that. His reputation has showed us that, but I think he loves Oxford. I think he understands the dynamics around here. And I think year 3 is only going to be better. And I love the talent on the team. I think there's a couple pieces we're still kind of waiting on to get here and those type of things. But, again, I think it could be really fun. And, the Sweet 16 was awesome. But I think if Coach Beard was sitting here, he wants to win a championship.
He does.
And I think that's something that we can get done at Ole Miss.
Well, that's what was really cool is like, man, if we had a healthy Matt Morrell, that was like a big topic for a minute there, and Matt was like, I don't even want to think about it. But I told Matt, and I'll put it on the record here. I said, next time I see Keith, we're going to talk about getting your number in the rafters, man, up there with that big board with all that kind of stuff. You're up there. We're going to get him up there because, man, he's a dying breed in this game, bro. Like 5 years at one place, you know what I mean? And like he had opportunities elsewhere, and the accomplishments are what they are. But it was just what a great ambassador he's going to be. I think him and Jamin Brakefield for the program moving forward.
No doubt, just great young men. Matt has been such a great Ole Miss Rebel, and like you said, had opportunities to do other things. Probably could have gone pro last year, and done some things there, but wanted to come back and wanted to kind of finish what he started. And that group had not been to a tournament, and for them to not only get into the tournament, get to the Sweet 16, that was just so cool. And it hurt a little bit watching him last year, not being healthy and still being out there, just giving everything he had. And, you wished for him that he could be healthy and the Matt Morrell that we've seen. He's going to get back there, obviously. But yeah, him and Brake and those guys, man, they meant a lot to this program. And so I think we'll always look back on that group and say, man, they were, there's different groups, I think, throughout Ole Miss basketball history that have kind of, done some cool things. But man, when you talk about Morrell and Brake and those guys that stuck it out, and here's the thing, I'd love to look back in 10 years from now and see how many players stayed at the same school all 4 or 5 years. I bet it's going to be less than 10 or 15% when it's all said and done in the new world we're living in. So a guy like Matt, and then obviously Brake started at Duke and then came back and finished here. They are rare for sure.
They're rare. And it was really cool to just hang out with him and see that he said he's feeling better and he's getting back and running into form. Sean Padula signed a 10-day exhibition deal or whatever it is with the Portland Trailblazers. Matt will get his opportunity. And like I told him, man, like there's nothing beyond his capacity basketball wise when he's healthy. And he never needs to forget that. But it was really funny too, because I got to share with him, drop some old school Ole Miss basketball knowledge. All right, I got to tell him how Jozon Darby was my favorite player growing up. How you broke my heart. Y'all broke my heart when I was 10. It's the first time I cried in front of a group of people. We've talked about all this stuff before, but like, I don't think he quite appreciated how much of a baller you were, man. I think like that we got to make sure we keep that alive. Okay. Like what's your favorite Ole Miss basketball memory as a player and favorite as an AD? They're different.
They are different. As an AD, so that's probably last year, just to see the success. And again, a lot of the hard times that group had gone through and to finish their careers on such a high note, that was really cool. As a player, you think about back
Arkansas.
Beating Arkansas was always fun, but Kentucky in Lexington,
yep.
That was a great one. But man, just more than just the wins, it was just the group. The guys you mentioned, Jozon, that kind of gave me PTSD real quick because man, that dude was the best defender I've ever played against, and he was always up in my grill in practice. But what a great guy and incredible basketball player. But that group was a special group, and man, I miss just being in the locker room with those guys and going to battle with those guys.
Well, it's really fun too because look, I've been getting on your butt about like getting back out there, getting some shots up, doing like a 3-point thing, and you're like, Ben, I'd probably snap a knee. You know what I mean? I do, and then you go out to the celebrity softball thing. And the competitive juices are flowing. You're out there like hitting tanks and stuff. And what are you doing? If you can do that in celebrity softball, you could get out there for like celebrity 3-point shooting and just like make it rain.
Well, I maybe the shooting part.
Yeah.
When you got to move around and cut, and the problem on the basketball court is your mind tells you can do something, and then your body quickly tells you that you can't. But I still play with my little 11-year-old man Hayes. My little guy.
Is he a bucket?
He's getting there. Yeah, he's with at camp with Coach Beard earlier this week, and he's actually doing a camp yesterday and today with Coach Davis over at OPC.
Let's go.
So a full week of basketball and loves baseball. But my competitive days are pretty much over.
When's the last time you dunked? Do you remember?
I actually tried to dunk the other day and didn't quite get there.
That had to be defeated. That had to be like, dang.
I think I could though. I think I could. I didn't really stretch. I think if I stretched and maybe I think there would be a chance I could maybe lay it over the top of the rim, but I didn't feel good after the attempt. Not gonna lie,
things were hurting.
Stretched out a few things that hadn't been stretched in a while. So,
oh, that's funny. All right, construction projects. Anything really going on that's at the top of the agenda and all that kind of stuff?
Well, if you drive over, obviously just finished the softball stadium. Super proud of that.
Looks great too. Like aesthetically, really kind of like it just that RiverLand event with the celebrity softball just. Awesome. Outside of my old ass red truck getting pelted by Will Allen homers.
My truck got one too.
Did it?
It sure did. Yeah.
See, and we should know better. We of all people should know that you do not park in the outfield of a home run derby.
Well, I parked behind this, like almost like right under the score, like behind
that was
the scoreboard.
You.
Got my silver truck back there. But apparently, there must have been a really high one that came straight down and got me. So it put a nice little dent on the top.
Yeah, like the BRT, the big red truck out there, that old F-150's paid off. Dude, there's the windshield that's perfect. Just like perfect circle.
Thankfully, I didn't get a windshield, but we finished that. We're super proud of that. Long overdue to build that facility. If you go right across the street, we're doing some renovations to the soccer field, new scoreboard, new field. So we're moving the benches over to the other side of the field so that they can have access to the Gillum Center and restrooms and those type of things. So some things we're doing there. We've got some plans to do some work out at the golf house with the locker rooms and coaches' offices. We're hoping to start that maybe right after the first of the year. Nothing major from a big capital project standpoint, but we're trying to fix some things as we go. And then as we figure out what rev-share looks like, and as we get into the next 12, 24 months, then we'll probably have some bigger plans for maybe even the stadium and some things like that we're thinking about.
Yeah, and I thought you mentioned those other sports like soccer and softball. I think, and you've already talked about this. You mentioned it in a story that Jake Thompson wrote at my website, the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, affiliate of On3, not cutting sports and stuff like that. But like, how tough was that conversation, and when did y'all kind of come to the consensus like we're going to do everything we can to keep what we got? You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think this whole math equation that we're trying to solve now is obviously finding new revenues, but it's also being more efficient with the way we do things. And, I've talked with the chancellor, I've talked with our staff about ways that we can get, skinny up a little bit and become more efficient. And so we're doing that. We implemented 5% budget cuts across really all of our department, all of our sports, all of our administration. But what we said was, we're going to look at all of those cost cutting measures from A to Z, but with Z being cutting sports. I mean, that's the very last option. I mean, we're about giving young people opportunities, not only opportunities, but getting a great education and winning. We've had very successful programs. We finished 27th in the Learfield Directors Cup that came out yesterday. I was hoping to finish a little bit higher.
I'm gonna be honest, especially after the Owensfield success. I mean, good grief, man! Come on now, 27. What all goes into the rankings here?
Well, it's one of those things. Our highest finish we ever had was, I think, in 22, and we finished 20th. And we had a couple of kind of 20 and 22 finishes there. But those were the years we won the championship in baseball. We won the championship in women's golf. Winning a championship gets you a lot of points. Yeah. And so for us, we had a very consistent season, a lot of deep runs in the playoffs, but maybe because we didn't get that national championship in one of the sports. But it's just hard. And the Learfield ranking is based on your top 19 sports and how they finish in the postseason. Well, we only have 18 sports.
Yeah, that's right.
So every year we're starting one sport behind. So for us, if we finish inside the top 30, top 25, that's a really good year. And in a year that we win a natty or two, we'll be inside the top 20. So that's our goal.
The most successful athletics year in modern history. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, every single sport. It was fun to listen to the coaches too talk about that. How we got to do it, pull our share, do our part because everybody's winning on campus. And also the guaranteeing in baseball, 2 baseball questions. One, guaranteeing the 34 scholarships. What does that mean for the fan that doesn't know exactly what that means, and the calculus in terms of rev-share and how the balancing of the budget with all this new world you're walking into?
Yeah, for baseball, and I said this on another either podcast or interview that I did, if we had just in a vacuum gone over to Coach B and said, hey, Coach, we're going to take you from 11.7 to 30 full ride scholarship. They've been fighting for that for, 30, 40 years. And so it's been
11.7 for like 40 years.
It has. And so, and they are super appreciative. And obviously that's going to impact so many student athletes getting a full ride. And that's so incredible. But basically everybody's doing that, so if it was just Ole Miss, we'd have an advantage, but it's everybody that's basically going to full ride scholarships in baseball. So, the above the cap, above the scholarship rev-share, what that looks like. And then obviously the true NIL that we talked about earlier, those are going to be huge factors moving forward. So, but I'm excited about, what we can do with really all of our sports. We've been able to add scholarship opportunities really across the department for student athletes. Which is cool. Softball, as an example, they'll go to full ride scholarships as well. They'll have 25 full ride scholarships. So it's been cool in that, in that way. And again, if we're not careful, we can get caught up in all the minutia of all this junk that's going on. But at the end of the day, we're here to give young people opportunities, and we got to make sure we do that.
Last one, Mike, in the rebound for Ole Miss baseball last year, it was a welcome thing. I mean, it was a great season. They were 1 win short of hosting the first Super since 2009, and that Murray State team went on to Omaha, and man, I don't know how they were 4 here. I still don't know how they were 4 here, but left his contract alone. Kind of what went into that. I think he's at 3 years, and kind of what were the conversations like with Mike after the season was over?
Well, we talked and obviously, I have a great relationship with Mike, and it was a great year. It was a fantastic bounce back year. And the last 2 years are just total outliers in his whole career. Mike's been super consistent and obviously got the natty in 22. And to bounce back this year was awesome. Obviously a disappointing end to the season. And I think Mike would tell you that. You run into just a really hot team in Murray State that just, couldn't get them out. Nobody could get them out there for a while. And, that hurt to lose that regional at home. But, man, getting back to who we are, obviously doing some great things in the portal for next year's roster, already bringing some guys back that I think will be impact players. So I have no doubt that, Mike's going to do what Ole Miss baseball is and get consistent again. And, if you keep putting yourself in that position, you're going to, get through the door, get to the super regional again, get to Omaha again. And I know that we're going to support all that, support Mike and Laugh and Clem and Coach Mangrum and all those folks, and look forward to next year for sure.
So generally from the man that's captaining the ship here, I mean, you feel it's healthy. Things are where they need to be starting. I know it's June, but it's kind of turning toward the next year. I mean, you feel Ole Miss is in a healthy place athletically, from everything we need to be doing operationally.
I do. I think we're in a great spot. I think we've navigated this crazy world of transfer portal and NIL and all that the past 3 or 4 years. Obviously a new chapter of that, kind of a new look, from that standpoint now. I think we're prepared. The chancellor, I can't say enough about him and how supportive he is and what we do in athletics. He sees the value of athletics and what it means to the institution. So, can't give him enough credit. And our coaches, our student athletes, I think we're in a really, really good spot. And you hit on something earlier. I think back in 21 when we won the women's golf national championship, I think all of a sudden, obviously that was great for women's golf, but I think it was great for our department because people started, other coaches, other student athletes like, hey, we can do this. 22, you win the baseball, and we've had some individual national championships, had a few this year, but I think that's contagious, and all of a sudden everybody's like, hey, we want one of those trophies too. And I think we really have that culture now in Ole Miss athletics. And I think, it's been 5 years. I'm going into my sixth athletic year. And I think things are hopefully just going to continue to get better and better. But we're going to look up. It'll be football season before you know it.
Yeah. My question is are you going to do this to your old and gray? Are you going to be the AD?
I've already got some gray.
I've got some
gray.
Not really, man. Come on.
I love what I do. I love our staff. I love going to work every day. And,
you're not there yet or anything.
No. And these jobs are hard. It's really hard, to navigate, all that we have to. But when you do it with good people, you do it with good coaches, you get around students. Like this spring to me, back in the winter, we were kind of bogged down on kind of where we were going just as an industry. And you're in all these meetings, and then this spring with this postseason run of really all of our sports and getting to travel and spend time with them, it really refreshed me and rejuvenated me, and kind of, hey, again, this is why we do what we do. All the smiles on their faces, being in Fayetteville when we win the Super Regional in softball, and being out at men's golf when Lasasso wins the national championship, and those are just really cool things. And to realize, hey, you're the leader of a department and a small part of that success, it makes me ready to do it again next year.
Hey, look, man, like Chris Beard and them said last night, again, it was so cool to spend my 15th anniversary, me and my wife sitting there hanging out with Chris Beard, Matthew Morrell, and she didn't know him at all, didn't know him from Adam, and then she was like, oh, he's really, but it was, just a lovely, lovely time, but it was really, really cool because when Matt and Chris, when they went to Milwaukee, they said, some people try to play it cool, like to, act like they've been there before. He said, no, we were smelling every rose, man. We were doing every,
you have to.
Yeah. Matt said I was wearing sunglasses everywhere I went. He couldn't control his emotions, how excited he was. So just a special time in Ole Miss athletics, and Keith Carter is the man leading the way. This has been Talk with Champions with Ole Miss Athletics Director Keith Carter here in the RiverLand Roofing Studios, just off the Oxford Square. For all your roofing needs, it's RiverLand Roofing, 662-644-4297. Few, if any, are doing more for Ole Miss than the name, image, and likeness space. So give RiverLand Roofing your business, riverlandroofing.com. And I write for the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, and affiliate of On3. Keith's been a good friend. I appreciate you doing this, man, and we'll do it again soon.
Yep. Thanks, Ben.